Football isn't coming home, but we've got good news because Dave the Catters and all of our favourite underdogs Morocco are making history by becoming our first African team to make it to the World Cup semi-finals.
Yeah, what a weekend of football it was. Lionel Messi's last dance continues. Croatia still going strong, another penalty shootout against Brazil, dumping Brazil out. Yeah, can't wait to see what lies ahead for the semi-finals. This is the World Cup Sera Qatar.
Welcome to World Cup Sera Qatar, a podcast produced and presented by sports journalism students live from our TV studios in Preston. I am Elliot Thompson, a third-year sports journalism student.
And I'm Ollie Walton, also a third-year sports journalism student. In this episode, we're reviewing all the action from the games over the weekend and all the major talking points. We'll also be looking ahead to the semi-final games that are happening on Tuesday and Wednesday. As usual, joining the studio by our very own sports journalism World Cup pundits. They are...
Hi there, I'm Joe Stevenson, first year sports journalism student here at UCLan.
And I'm Sam White, and I'm a first year sports journalism student here at UCLan.
Brilliant. Before we get to you guys, though, we'll hear from you guys in a few minutes. First, we welcome our defender on the call, former defender, former footballer, Clark Carlisle. Plays for Blackpool, Burnley, Queen's Park Rangers, who's also the chairman of the PFA. Clark, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Brilliant to hear from you. First off, we want to get your instant reaction. Obviously, the England game happened Saturday. 2-1 loss to France. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think it was a deserved loss? Do you think France could go on to win the whole thing now?
I've got to say, I was devastated. You know, it's quite a strong word, isn't it, to use about a football match. I was devastated, especially the circumstances under which the team lost, because I thought they were outstanding. You know, first half was neither here nor there, really. You know, for France, it was slightly the better side, but we nullified their threats. You know, it's the only problem that I saw for England in that game at half time was Antoine Griezmann. You know, I thought he was popping up in places that Declan Rice couldn't track him across the park because, you know, he was protecting Maguire and Stones. But in the second half, the side... They stepped up in an attacking sense where they dominated the possession and the pace of the game. And I truly believe that had England won that game, had Harry Kane scored that penalty, I think this side would have won this World Cup. So I'm devastated, you know, as I'd rather there'd have been rubbish. I'd rather it had been a terrible performance. And we're just like, yeah, okay, woe is England. We're not good enough. But they are good enough, you know, and I'm intrigued to see how that squad develops going into the next Euros. But as for France, do I think they'll win it? No, I don't. They've got currently the best player in the world in their side. And one guy who feeds him, but that's it. I think there are two other sides that are better teams in this Final Four.
Fair enough. You mentioned Kane's missed penalty there. Obviously a massive moment for him, massive moment for England in his sort of career as he gets a bit older as well. How do you think he's going to bounce back from that, and how much will that sort of hurt him, just away from the football side on a personal note?
It's going to be very, very difficult for him to get over such a colossal error. And that's what it is. It's one error, you know, that when you're a penalty taker or when you're a goalkeeper, one error can define a career. But there are a couple of things that I think that will stand Harry Kane in good stead. First of all, it's not the only penalty he's ever missed. You know, it's not like one of my old teammates, Graham Alexander, had scored 42 out of 42 penalties. So you're wondering how he's going to manage that first penalty miss. Harry Kane's missed penalties before, and he's stepped up and taken more penalties and scored them. So he'll be okay. The other thing that stands in his favour is that this World Cup is in such a weird time of the year that it's only a couple of weeks before he gets back to football.
Yeah, of course.
And in football, you know, you're only as good as your last game. So having the opportunity to redeem himself, albeit in a Tottenham shirt as opposed to an England shirt, you know, will give him the opportunity to rebuild some momentum and regain any lost confidence. before he's called on to take a penalty for England again. So, the weird timing of the World Cup will actually work in his favour.
Yeah.
Another massive talking point is obviously Gareth Southgate. What do you want? Do you want him to stay or go? And what do you actually think will happen?
Categorically, it's one of the silliest talking points that I've heard about, even before the World Cup. Because England's preparations into the World Cup, we had a couple of lackluster, Nations League performances, and people were questioning Gareth Southgate's credentials for the job. I think it's the most absurd conversation. This guy has transformed the culture of the England side. If we look at any of his three predecessors, the three managers before, there were always huge questions about team selection. Was he just selecting superstars, as opposed to actually developing a playing style and putting the right players in the right positions in those playing styles, and also managing the squads. You look at any of the tournaments prior to Gareth Southgate, there were always issues in and around the playing staff and their interactions, whether it was with their spouses or the coaching staff or the wider footballing community. There were always issues going into major tournaments. Gareth Southgate has totally done away with that. He's transformed the ethos of our national side. And we've seen from his squad selection, even for this World Cup, he picks players on merit. No, he doesn't pick players on, you've got 40 caps and X, Y, and Z. So I think that for this squad, because there is so much youth in it, for this squad to mature to the next tournament, to the next Euros, he has to be the guy who takes them on those next steps, because he's the one who I believe can, recover the confidence loss that they'll have from this tournament and transform it into positive mentality and forward steps into the next one.
You're not concerned that maybe, one of the big things has been said that is he's going to stay with the England squad. You're not concerned that that'll become another regular occurrence going into 2024 and 26 if he were to stay on?
How is it stale? We go into that game against France, and you ask any of the pundits across any of the channels, the vast majority were thinking he's going to switch to three at the back. He's going to try and cater for France as opposed to imposing his, footballing philosophy. We're talking about how he has to play, at one point prior to the tournament, has to play Raheem Sterling because of what he's done before. We're talking at one point, how can he bring in Jude Bellingham and sit him alongside Rice and Henderson and still have two attacking midfielders? Gareth Southgate has made decisions that have defied pundit and external critique or logic, and they've proved successful. I think that Jordan Henderson had his best tournament in his career, and he was playing in a role where he's, for the most part, sat behind Harry Kane and breaking that forward line. You would question, can someone of his age do that? The mileage that this guy covered, and that's Gareth Southgate's decision. There's nothing stale about that. No, I think that he has made tactical decisions that have been astute, and that he's not been bullied into adopting his style or changing any of the players that he's played in any position.
You briefly mentioned Jude Bellingham there. He's had a massive tournament. He's only 19 years old. What do you believe happens next to him? Now, obviously, all the big teams will be after him.
Yeah, they will, and it's going to be an incredibly difficult decision for Jude Bellingham and his family and his team around him, what his next step is. You have a look at any kind of positive example for him. You can only really go for Haaland, can't you, really? Erling Haaland, I think, has done it the right way by gaining his experience at a side that is known for developing talent. So, you know, he wasn't there just to be a big fish in a small pond. He was there, he was going to get the game time, but he was also going to get that coaching development that was going to bring on his his playing qualities. And then when he was ready, then he stepped into a bigger side. Now, that I think the decision for Jude Bellingham is whether he feels that he is ready now to step into the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester City, and play every week. Because one of the hardest things to cope with as a developing talent is being the next big thing and then being sidelined for a period of time, you know, for whatever reason, whether it's a managerial choice, whether it's a slight loss of form or whatever, but managing the fact that, you know, you're no longer top of the pile is a very difficult transition to deal with. So is he ready now? I think, like you guys just said, off the back of that tournament, he's shown that he can play alongside and better the best in the world. Can he do it week in, week out for a season at a club where it's not just hoped for, it's demanded of him? That'll be seen.
Yeah, another player that had many people think quite a good tournament, and has also his future's been debated at club level, is Harry Maguire. As a former centre half yourself, what were your thoughts on his performance, and how do you think he'll take confidence from having a good tournament with England into his club form with Manchester United?
Yeah, Harry did have an outstanding tournament, and he was so unlucky with that header, wasn't he, against France? I had visions of that big slab head smashing it in the top corner. And that's from one slab head to another, let me tell you. But it's a very difficult thing to manage hypercriticism as a defender, because when you start to second guess your own decisions, you take an extra split second to make that decision. You know, you're like, shouldn't I make this pass? Shouldn't I make that tackle? And when you take an extra split second at the levels that Harry Maguire and Manchester United are playing at, you will be exploited by the greatest players in the world, you know. So that split second it is absolutely vital in delineating an average defender and the world's best defenders. Now, coming off the back of a tournament like that, where he has competed with the best in the world, and he has done it with aplomb, but it should give him confidence to go back to his autopilot decisions. You know, the way that he strode out a defence against France, and he ran the ball some 55, 60 yards, and then laid it off and still carried on into the box. We haven't seen that from Harry Maguire for some 4 or 5 months, and that's because he's been solely focused on making sure he gets his job right. So hopefully it'll bring out, you know, the additional sides to his game. But one thing I think that Manchester United and Ten Hag will have to take note of is he could play like that because, first of all, England controlled the majority of the possession. When your side controls the majority of the possession, your centre halves have plenty of time to make sure that they're in the right position at the right time. You know, you're very rarely surprised by opposition movement when you've got the ball the majority of the time. Second of all, Declan Rice is an outstanding sitting midfielder. You know, I experienced this again. I'll name drop him again. Graham Alexander. When you've got a midfielder sat in front of you who restricts the options into the striker's feet, who makes the play in front of you very predictable. You know, if I've got a guy here who I know makes sure that my striker can't get the ball into feet, then I don't have to go touch tight to him, because I know he can't cause me any problems in front. So I can be 3-4 yards off, and that gives me, you know, a 3-second head start to any ball in behind. This guy sat in front makes me look like an outstanding defender, but that's because he's nullified half of the striker's options. So we have to understand the circumstances that made Harry Maguire look good. And they made, well, I don't say make John Stones and Harry Maguire are exceptional players. but it made their job easier
Yeah.
to control possession and to have that sitting midfielder in there who's good at doing his job.
Yeah.
Just before you wrap it up, you mentioned you don't think France will win. So I want your semi-final. How do you think semi-finals will play out, and how do you think the final? Who's going to win this tournament?
Croatia are going to be incredibly stubborn. They're going to take Argentina at a 1-1 draw into extra time, and Argentina will win. Morocco are going to be incredibly enthusiastic and energetic, and they're going to try counter-attack football. But counter-attack football against France, when they're possessed of so much quality in the final third, means that they're probably going to lose 3-1, 4-1 in normal time, and then Argentina will win the final. So that's what I'm saying is going to happen. What I hope will happen is that Morocco batter everyone.
I think
See an African winner of the World Cup.
I think we all agree with that one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Massive thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jed. God bless.
Right.
Great to hear from Clark.
Yeah, quality. Before we move on to the two massive semi-finals, we've got to look back, of course. I'm going to bring in our pundits now. We had Croatia beat Brazil, one of the favourites on penalties. We had Holland take Argentina all the way, nearly ruining Messi's dream, but Messi got there in the end.
Then on Saturday, obviously, we had Morocco, the first ever African side to make it to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Cristiano Ronaldo, sad end to his career.
Leaving in tears.
Tears in the tunnel. Then, of course, it was au revoir Qatar for England, defending world champions France, knocking them out 2-1. Harry Kane scored a penalty, then missed the other one.
England, of course, Clark has mentioned, we want Southgate. He wants Southgate to stay. We've got Tuchel and Pochettino sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs. What do you guys think? Southgate in or out?
For me, I totally and utterly agree with what Clark said. Gareth Southgate has completely revolutionised the way we view England. They're exciting, they're attacking. It's kind of what every England fan kind of wants from their international side. And we look back to, the despairs of South Africa 2010, Brazil 2014, Euro 2016 in that, where we didn't perform to expectations. This is an exciting side, a youthful side. I mean, Jude Bellingham, what a tournament, by the way. And I think Gareth Southgate has got to stay. Most major tournament wins of any England manager in England history. So the stats don't lie. The performances were good. They played France well. We contained Mbappe well. He's one of the most prolific strikers on the world right now, and we contained him. I think we can go back with our heads held high, and we've broken a load of records. Kane obviously becoming England's joint top goal scorer. But of course, it all comes back down to penalty half take, doesn't it, with England?
Same old.
But yeah, Southgate definitely in for me.
Well, I'm sorry to disagree with you, Sam, but I believe that you've got to take context into account. Look at who we've played. The 3 times we've played big-ish teams, we've lost. Italy, final, we should have lost in normal time, really. Croatia in the last World Cup, we're a better side than Croatia, but we lost.
Yeah.
And France, whenever France wanted to score a goal against us, they did, whenever they had to. As soon as we equalised with the penalty, they were on us. Giroud had a volley, should have scored. It was a good save from Pickford. Minutes later, Giroud scores. We beat Germany in the Euros. People use that as a sort of thing to, support Southgate with. Look at the Germany side it is. Last 2 World Cups, they've gone out in the group stage. Gareth Southgate, yes, he's done better than England manager since 1966, but when you take context into account, I think it's time to move on.
So are you boiling them sort of games down to Southgate himself and like a mentality issue that you think he sort of breeds within the camp? Do you think? I don't think it's just down to the players. You think Southgate is the reason? I
think the manager's always got to take responsibility. Obviously, he can't take responsibility for Harry Kane missing a penalty, but it shouldn't come down to having to score 2 penalties. If it's a penalty kick that keeps you in the World Cup, did you really deserve to say we should go through?
I think as well, for me, we weren't expected to win this tournament. Well, I personally didn't think so. I thought we were going to go out quarters, and we have. It would have been great, honestly, to get further, but it is what it is. I think this World Cup has been a stepping stone for the big players. As I said, Jude Bellingham, what a tournament. Just thinking about him in a way as well, the minute Kane missed that penalty, he ran up to Kane and was incredibly encouraging. I've never seen that for a person that age. No wonder he's got the captain's armband at Dortmund for a little bit. But yeah, as I was saying, it's definitely a stepping stone for the Euros. I think the Euros is completely earmarked now because we've brought out Saka, we've brought out Bellingham, brought out Foden, and most of the players are still young. You've probably got maybe Kane, Maguire, possibly Stones, may not be making that 2024 side. So really, I think we can be impressed. So yeah.
Obviously, we've talked a lot about England now. We'll move on. The game before England saw Morocco beat Portugal, one of the greatest underdog stories.
My dark horses.
Yeah, they certainly were. They would have been mine, but for some reason I didn't go with them. Ronaldo's last ever World Cup, most likely. Quite a miserable one. What are you guys' thoughts on that? And we've got to take Morocco seriously against France, surely.
Well, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's played, I think, 7 knockout games now at a World Cup, hasn't had a single goal.
No.
For a player that holds himself in such high esteem as Cristiano Ronaldo, he's got to take a look at his own performances. Maybe the occasion gets the better of him.
Do you think that sort of, people talk about the greatest of all time, do you think that maybe takes him out of the debates for that?
Well, the greatest player of all time has to perform in the greatest competition of all time, and that's the World Cup. And I think if Cristiano Ronaldo, you saw he goes off in tears at the end, the occasion obviously means so much to him. I think maybe everything surrounding him before the tournament, the Piers Morgan interview, getting dropped by his manager, I think it wasn't Cristiano Ronaldo playing with confidence, and we know with Cristiano Ronaldo, it's a confidence player. He likes being that player, and well, he isn't that player anymore.
I think as well, I totally agree with you, Joe, in the sense that it does take a team to, even with one of the biggest players in Ronaldo, the team as a unit is also important. Morocco have shown that. No one predicted them to get that far. But I think it does reflect on Portugal. The unit is probably not as strong as we all think Portugal are. They've not actually... The last time they got to semi-finals was 2006. They didn't get out of the group in 2014. So, and that's ideally probably when Ronaldo peaked in his career. So I think it is kind of reflecting on the whole Ronaldo and Portugal scenario. But I think there are questions now of what is the identity of Portugal without Ronaldo. I think that's going to be quite interesting in the next couple of years or so. But yeah, disappointment for Ronaldo, but I think the right team went through.
Yeah, it looks like Portuguese manager will probably be leaving as well.
Well,
Santos.
I hope Morocco go all the way as well.
Well, absolutely. I think we all want that, really. The beautiful story will be one of the greatest stories in football in history, really. But looking back at the other quarter-final, Argentina beat Holland on penalties. It wasn't a game for the faint-hearted. There was tackles, there was yellow cards. What do we think of all the scuffles and the route on football from Holland? It was good to watch, good fun.
Well, it's typical Louis van Gaal, isn't it? You see him at Manchester United, the fans were in absolute agony for them years. Louis van Gaal was there. He was just completely... It's not the type of football that wins games anymore. You've seen managers like Jose Mourinho go out of the sport now because he can't move with the times. Same with Louis van Gaal. That football doesn't cut anymore. You need the football of Pep Guardiola. You've seen Mikel Arteta with Arsenal, how he's transformed them. And 18 yellow cards, 1 red card. It's not a good look for the Netherlands.
No, well, they came close, didn't they, though, Sam? What were your thoughts on the Netherlands?
Well, who'd have thought it was a Burnley striker that was going to take Netherlands to the extra time against Argentina? That's what I first thought. Personally speaking, I really wanted Argentina to win this because I think Lionel Messi kind of deserves it. But a really entertaining game. Slightly let down by the referee losing control, but I think all the kind of brawls kind of added to the excitement a little bit. But obviously, penalties again. But yeah, the right team won. What a game, though. I think Qatar World Cup is kind of shaping into one of the best ever. I think amongst all the criticism at the beginning, it's proving to be one of its own. So yeah, right team went through. Disappointment for Dutch, obviously. First time back since 2014. So yeah, right team went through, and of course Argentina got Croatia.
Croatia obviously beat Brazil on penalties again. What went wrong for Brazil? They were terribly underwhelming.
You look at Brazil's attack and you wonder how it was not scoring goals that cost them this World Cup. They didn't score their penalties, and they couldn't score more than one goal against Croatia. And when Neymar took around the keeper and scored that goal, I thought, that's it.
Yeah,
That's enough.
absolutely.
So you've got to give the credit to Croatia for managing to galvanise, come back from that. Luka Modric, obviously a leader in that team. It's an incredible feat again for Croatia. 2 penalty shootouts to get to the semi-finals, just the same as in Russia. So I think Brazil, the manager's obviously gone, probably didn't get it right.
I think he was always going to after this tournament though as well. So it kind of like it makes sense
Croatia,
now.
has everyone got to be taking them a bit more seriously?
Croatia, we have to, because as you've alluded to, Joe, their tactic is go all the way, play 2 hours of football and win on penalty shootouts. As you said, they've done it in 2018 twice, and they've already done it twice in 2022. They beat Japan, Brazil. They beat Japan, Brazil this time around, Denmark and Russia last time around. But that is Croatia's tactic, and I don't think we expected them to be as good as they were 4 years ago. But yeah, amazingly well by Croatia. But I think Croatia-Argentina will be a fantastic game. I think Clark said that. And because they'll want it. They'll want it. So, I think definitely a game to watch tomorrow.
I'll hold you there on Argentina-Croatia, so we'll look forward now to the semi-finals. That's going to be a massive one. What are you expecting from that game? You think Messi's going to step up again? I
think Argentina will want revenge for 4 years ago. Obviously, that really, really poor performance, which led to Croatia winning 3-0. And I think Argentina, honestly, I think they're in the form of their lives right now. But also, Croatia want to go all the way, as I've said, all the way to penalties and win on penalties as they did. Perhaps, if that happens, we could be having a rematch of 4 years ago.
What are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
I think Lionel Messi is a man for the big occasion, perhaps settling the greatest of all time debate this tournament. Messi is providing for Argentina game after game. Like I said, shadows of 2014 where he was dragging Argentina to that World Cup final. I think it's going to be the same story again. I think Messi will be the difference between the two sides.
Push you for a prediction. Okay.
Argentina 2-0.
Yourself as well?
2-1 Argentina.
Go on, you.
On the spot. Actually, I agree with what Clark said. I think he said 1-1, didn't he?
Yeah, I was thinking the similar. I think
on penalties, Argentina on penalties.
I think Croatia on penalties. I think Messi's going to fall short. I hope not, but I feel like it's Croatia just got something about them. On Wednesday we have Morocco against France as well. We've all mentioned Morocco, we're going to take them seriously, but France, surely it's a bit like one step too far. But we said that about Belgium, we said that about Spain, we said that about the other team he played, which I've forgotten. But Portugal, that was the one. Thank you, Ali. But what do we think this time?
Well, Morocco, they're the history makers, aren't they, right now? Semi-finalists in Africa for the first ever time. You know, Cameroon in Italia 90, Roger Miller couldn't make it. Senegal in 2002, 94th minute winner by Turkey. And then, obviously, in 2010, we all know what happened with Ghana and Asamoah Gyan. But I think, I'm just going to say it, I would love Morocco to be in that final.
Absolutely.
I think Morocco on penalty kicks will take it to the final.
It's a very bold prediction. What about yourself?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's, you know, it's Ghana in 2020, Costa Rica 2014, and Croatia in 2018, and now we have Morocco in 2022. So it is always a World Cup of underdogs. I think we all just want Morocco to do it before the World Cup. Obviously, never got out their group before in their history, so of course, no one expected them to get this far. Huge kudos to them. Will France do it? I think they might, but Morocco are going to give them a good for a run. So I'm going to say 2-1 to France, but it will go to extra time.
Sure. Your thoughts?
I'm just going to go out on a limb and I'll say 1-0 Morocco again. similar kind of game, back to the wall, get an early goal. Hope so. I don't think France were as good as 2018. Would you agree with that?
No, they're definitely not the same side. No. When you have Pogba and Kante in their prime, it's not the same with Tchouaméni and Rabiot, but you've now got
no Benzema as well. It's like,
well, Benzema might still get a medal if France win. He's still on the squad list somehow. France, it's again. I think it was a tournament of the best of a bad bunch. Would you say Brazil were the favourites and they went out with underwhelming. The same with France. You could see England nearly beat them, and it was nearly a disappointing tournament for them.
I predicted Brazil, so I'll eat my words. No one predicted France really. But you've got to give credit to them for coming back to back, broken the champions curse, which I think kind of a lot of us actually hope for. But yeah, France have won it, Morocco won it, be a tight contest. It's really difficult to predict.
I'm going to go Morocco 1-0 as well. It's
Okay.
what my heart wants.
Yeah.
That is it for today. Thank you to our wonderful pundits and guest Clark, of course, for some brilliant insight. And of course, to you listen along at home.
This podcast was produced and presented by sports journalism students at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston. If you liked it, you can follow and rate us on Spotify and YouTube. Make sure you share it with your friends. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning.